Hi everybody, Dr. Joan Effland here. Just so glad to be with you because today we're talking about an extremely important topic, and that is triggers that lead to overeating. There is a common myth in food addiction recovery circles, which is all the triggers are in the food. And once you have the addictive substances out of your meals, that you should be okay. And if you have a craving, or you have an urge or a longing for a processed food, it's because there's something in your food. Well, that is completely opposite of what we see in the research. The research shows that there are extensive ranges of cueing and triggering, and it's not just the food. The food is one of 6 categories of sources of triggers. And I'm going to walk you through them today and get you familiar with them, because once you know where the triggers are, then you can start to work on either training your brain not to respond or simply avoiding them. That is another huge myth about triggering, which comes out of, I think, really early work in the food addiction field, which is that once your food is clean, you should be able to go anywhere and do anything without being triggered, and that is just not consistent with the research. So what are these 6 categories? The first one is emotions. So we see that very clearly in the research, which is that emotions cause a craving reaction, and when you have a craving, it shuts down your frontal lobe, so you can't think your way out of it. You can't remember what to do. The next big category is relationships. This is something that we just see so clearly in the research, which is if you are around somebody who is dysfunctional, if you are around somebody who is mean to you, if you are around somebody who drags you into using processed foods, you will be relapsing more often. It is very hard to resist somebody who is kind of in your space, in your face. So if you're in that situation, maybe you're stuck somewhere in a house with people who are dysfunctional, you've got to find other people to really spend time with, even if it's online. We've talked about emotions, we've talked about relationships, and now we're going to talk about environments. So what is the food industry doing to provoke us into intense cravings? Remember, once you have a craving, the thoughtful part of you, the willpower part, is shut down. So either your brain is craving or you're thinking clearly, but you can't do both. The food industry just puts processed foods everywhere. They put advertising for processed foods everywhere. They're very carefully engineered to provoke cravings when you're driving down the highway, when you're at your workplace, if you have processed foods in your home, or you have media in your home. So media, by that I mean television or magazines, anything that has advertisements for processed foods. The big mistake in recovery, the big mistake that people make that leads to relapsing, is that they underestimate the power of these triggers. So these are, they're subtle, but they really stick with you. You may only glance at something, like you might only glance at a fast food place on your way to work or on your way to school or your way to take your kids somewhere, but that will stick with you. That is a very carefully designed event to make your craving pathways remember, oh yeah, there are craving foods there. So don't underestimate the power of emotions, relationships, and environments to trigger relapse. Now the other 3, remember there are a total of 6. We talked about food a little bit. The next one is your body. So your body shame, there's an emotional side to feelings about bodies, and then there's also the physical side where it's just painful. You know, you have headaches, you have joint aches, you have stomach aches, you can't move around too well, your joints are not working. So your body itself can trigger cravings, can trigger distress. And of course, distress can trigger cravings. And the last one, which is actually ironically the most easy to fix, is loneliness. So don't underestimate the trigger of loneliness in lapsing, relapsing, and compulsive overeating. So thank you so much for watching. This has been about underestimating the power of triggers. We've talked about emotion, relationship, and environment triggers. We talked about our own bodies, the food itself, and loneliness. So if you are wondering, okay, how do I get started to get control of my food? How do I get this nightmare of eating foods that I don't want to be eating? How do I get that to stop? Start looking at those 6 categories of triggers. Get out a sheet of paper and write down those 6 categories and think about the triggering that you're exposed to in each of those categories. Thank you so much. Do talk to your health professional about this, and if they refer you, we are happy to help. You can email me at foodaddictionreset@gmail.com, and our website is also foodaddictionreset.com. We have a great Facebook group, Food Addiction Education, and we are here to help you. So thank you so much for listening about the power of hidden triggers. Hi everybody, Dr. Joan Ifland here. So glad to be with you today because we are going to be talking about a leading reason why people cannot get control of their food, and it is loneliness. And people underestimate the power of loneliness to drive compulsive overeating, but it's a big factor. It's a big factor. So how does this work? Well, processed food addiction is a progressive disease. It gets worse and worse and worse over time. And what it's doing, it's closing in on us. It is closing in on us. It is making us think about processed foods all the time, and it's blocking out the rest of the world. So even though you might be out and about with people, you might socialize, because of the way processed food addiction dominates our thinking, we may not feel connected to the people around us. And so we feel lonely even when we're around people, because we connect to people through the frontal lobe, and cravings cut off the frontal lobe. They make it very hard to focus on other people. It makes it hard to listen to what they're saying. It makes it very hard to remember what they've said. And so we don't really get pleasure out of connecting with other people when we're eating processed foods and we're being subjected to those cravings. So what do you do about loneliness? Well, first of all, you can find support groups online. You know, loneliness also can come from the fact that the processed foods have made us gain weight and we don't want to be around other people, or the processed foods can also create artificial shame, and they can make our joints hurt. They can literally make us sick. They can make us very tired. They can make us depressed. They can make us very anxious, and they can make us not want to be around other people. And this is very understandable. And it doesn't have anything to do with how precious you are, or how wonderful you are, or how spectacular you are. It has to do with how processed foods cut off the feel-good parts of the brain. And they only leave us with shame, anger, and depression, and anxiety. And of course, we don't want to be around people when we're in those kinds of moods. One thing I recommend strongly is don't keep processed foods at home. It's a start in terms of making your home a place where you don't feel lonely. So processed foods make us feel lonely, get those processed foods out of your house. And then please connect with kind people. Just write down on a piece of paper, these are kind people. These are people who like me the way that I am right now. And really focus on connecting with those people, even if it's not in person, by email or by phone or on Facebook, reach out to those people. Talk to your health professional about this. They can help you sort out loneliness issues. And if they refer you, you can also reach us at foodaddictionreset@gmail.com. You can visit our website, foodaddictionreset.com, and you can join our Facebook group, Food Addiction Education. I hope to see you again. I care about you. I want you to be connected. Loneliness is incredibly painful, and it's a huge trigger for compulsive overeating. So I hope I get to see you again soon. Take care.